Now, this is now a Friday afternoon session. We have two sessions upcoming on one topic that, as I said in my introduction, gained a lot of attention in our preparation talks, which is touching upon the relationships that we as international media organizations have with partners in the so-called field. So there's a lot of pressing issues pertaining to that relationship that can be very complex. And then subsequent to this session, there will be our final session on China as a rising competitor in the field of journalism education. And that will be then the last session. So I give the floor to Christine and to the group. Have fun.
Thank you very much, Anja. Hope this is on. Yeah. Good afternoon, dear guests in the room and online. Welcome to this session on the role of trust in international media support collaboration. In preparation for this event, as Anja mentioned, we had several discussions and we agreed that we can't talk about trust and media without leaving us representing and talking here as a representative of an international media assistance organization out of the equation. My name is Christine Lear. I work as development manager for Thomson Media, the German partner office of Thomson Foundation. And in my work, I can see that trust affects the quality of our programs, not only in the development, but also in the implementation stage, the results, as well as the length and the quality of the relationships, and with it, the sustainability of the action and the sustainability of the media outlets we work with. And it's a two-way street after all, right? Or at least it should be. As Nicole Stremlov yesterday alluded in her keynote, when she asked, can we trust the evidence we receive from the ground? I would say local media partners should also ask whether they can trust that international media assistant organizations have the best intentions and act in their best interest. Here with me today, in person, quite delighted and happy about this, especially in the case of Saeed Nazir. With me here today to discuss how to build and sustain trust are Saeed Nazir from Pakistan, co-founder and director of the Tribal News Network in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province in Pakistan, Dr. Ines Drews, Program Director of the graduate program MEDAS 21 at the Erich Brost Institute, Dr. Christoph Spurg, you've seen him this morning and heard him, lecturer at media researcher at the Institute of Applied Media Studies at Zurich University of Applied Sciences. And unfortunately, we're supposed to have another chair on the panel for Werner Eggert from Interlink Academy, who unfortunately fell sick and won't be able to join us. So we wish him all a speedy recovery. And hopefully, Werner, if you can hear and see that, please participate in the chat. So we will look at this topic from various perspectives. Ines will get us out of our post-lunch slump with a short activation exercise before presenting different academic models and strategies on trust. Saeed will provide the local perspective, which is informed from his work with multiple international media assistant organizations. I believe we need an acronym for that as well soon, including his work with Thomson. And Christoph will bring the outside perspective with hopefully valuable lessons learned from the field of agriculture. So Saeed and Christoph will be interviewed by PhD fellow Mira Kessler from the MEDAS 21 program. We have Johanna Mack as a chat coordinator with us as well of the same program. And before we start, let me just say this is not a naming and shaming exercise. This is rather a critical assessment of our work, because I believe that we expect the same of our partners to be critical in their reporting. So feel free, participate also to the online guests, and with that, over to you.
Tina already mentioned, yes, it's right after lunch, and we thought it might be useful if we get you all activated a little bit, both the audience And here in the room and the audience online, we can both take part. So this is, yeah, the nice part about it. And in general, it's nice. So can we see the slide that is now being displayed on? Yes. So we will have a little warm up by you. Hopefully, if you have your digital device with you, which I assume you do, go to the page www.menti.com and then enter the code 44226086. And then I would ask you to name 3 things that are important to you in partnerships for media development. And please, it would be best if you stick to just one term per, yeah, as it says, enter a word. Okay. So I can see that it works because the first entries are already coming in. Nice. So more entries. Wait for a little. Just for the colleagues at the tech station, I just shared my screen with this laptop, so then I think you can already change to that. Ah, okay. So apparently we kind of primed you to trust during the last couple of hours and days. But what you see here is a word cloud appearing. And yeah, the bigger the word is displayed, the more people entered it. So we can already see, okay, what is very important to you here in the audience and at home is trust. But yes, transparency is another aspect. Yeah, transparency is something I think that will be an issue Christoph also alludes to. Respect, yes, is also something I think then you can already look forward to Said's presentation. What else do we have? Commitment, sustainability. Okay, the question then would be how to get there, how to make sure that the partnerships are sustainable. Professionalism is also quite big. Needs assessment is important. And yeah, listening is also an interesting one. Yeah, that will be something I think I will touch upon as well. So it's good to see. Thank you very much, everyone. So we have a nice first overview of what is important to all of us in media development partnerships, to both international organizations, NGOs, as well as local organizations, because we're all in the room online and offline. Yeah, so thank you very much. I hope you feel activated now. So, oh, I see.
Just wait for, try. Okay, is this working? And signs here. This is better? What does it mean to try another one? Or keep on talking? So, it's working? Okay, thank you very much. because from here it's not, audible that much because there's no monitor, going into our directions. Now I can hear myself. So hello and welcome everyone. I'm Mira Kessler, I'm from Midas 21, the graduate school. And I'm going to have a nice exchange today with Christoph and Said about trust in international cooperation. So Christoph, just a short question because you already got introduced. What motivates you every morning to go to your office?
Yeah, I'm one of those happy persons who have a job they like. I would only say I would even do it without the money. So I really love what I'm doing. That makes me motivated to go out of the bed and to the desk.
So it's about love. I will come back to that maybe, because I think what we are going to talk about is really linked to love. So like Christine also said, it's about, just a good attitude towards challenges. It's nothing bad. So it's coming from love, if I may say so. So Christoph, the first question is, you are going to talk about it. I'm not, I'm just asking about a project that you made some specific experiences with. Would you like to introduce us to the project?
Yeah, with pleasure. It was a 6 years agricultural research project. It was interdisciplinary. So therefore, agronomic research was combined with communication and sociology. We were funded for 6 years, and the project was conducted in 4 African countries: Mali, Ghana, Zambia, Kenya. It was about the issue that the soil fertility in Africa is declining in many sites. And on the other hand, there are existing a lot of agricultural technologies that maintain soil fertility or that even increase soil fertility, which are hardly used, especially by small-scale farmers. So in a nutshell, the project was agronomic researchers should find out how those known techniques can be adapted so that they are ready to be implemented by small-scale farmers. And we in the research, we developed a radio campaign to disseminate the results to small-scale farmers using community, local radio stations with their agricultural programs, and at the same time investigate the effect of this campaign, how much uptake they did. That was the project.
Okay, so my question is, when we talked about it before, you mentioned some difficulties in implementing and some challenges. So what were the challenges?
Yeah, I mean, as we talk about ownership, we in the team so there was a Swiss team and the teams in the 4 countries. The teams were out of 3 universities or other research institutions in those countries. We had PhDs, only African PhDs, no Swiss PhDs. So we had to trust on those institutions, and we faced the challenges that many research elements that were agreed upon, that were necessary for the final goal, for what we want to find out, were essential, were not conducted. For example, some focus group discussions for immersion in the local villages. What do the farmers really think? That was not done. We had agreed on content analysis of agricultural programs that were aired before. That was not done. And we spent a lot of efforts. I mean, I felt like a pusher all the time to really get the basics, to get the baseline study done, to get the endline study done. And you felt tired and you asked, what is the commitment there? Maybe I sound a little bit very negative now, but there were elements, there were times where I was really frustrated and thought, okay, there is no commitment, and why are we doing this? And
yeah, sounds like in a love relationship. So there's love, but also maybe sometimes frustration, but it's coming from love. So my question is, did you have a chance beforehand to develop the project design? I mean, how did it go?
Yeah. That's a good question, because I didn't mention that before. The project development was quite ideal. You know, we got extra funding for meeting the local partners in Switzerland, and all of them for 2 workshops of 3 to 4 days. There was enough time, the flights were paid, accommodation was paid. So we felt like in a almost luxury position, because this is not the usual case that funders, let's say, pay also for the development of the ideas and to submit the final proposal for research. So I thought this was good, but still.
Yeah, sounds quite ideal, right? So do you think, is this problem or the challenges that you experience, is it something specific only for agronomy research, or do you think that also media development, it could play a role?
I would say I've realized that in agronomic research, but speaking here before this audience, I thought after some time, I thought maybe we can learn as media assistants, we can also learn from that. Because I realized only at the end of the project, our partners, you know, we promoted some agricultural technologies. And the partners, and we find out in the end line, oh, they were not taken up by farmers. Farmers even left those technologies. And then our partner said, oh yeah, we knew that from the beginning. We said, oh, thanks for information. So timely. So it came to my idea that the serious question we have to ask when we do these exercises on commitment and ownership, do our partners, and maybe that's interesting for the media assistants, do our partners really have a chance to say no? What you have in mind as research is not interesting for us. You know, we had, after the second beer in the 5th year, I had a conversation with one of the researchers and said, you want to inquire about minimum tillage? It's not impossible for us. Minimum tillage is something special. It's not important here. But we knew it doesn't play a role here, but international funders want that, so what else can we do? And I think this is kind of symptomatic that the only question, I only say the lesson for the media assistance community could be, yes, can I have our partners a good chance to say, no, we want something else?
Yeah.
For example, I know some institutions do training. I feel that some local radio stations, they don't need training, they just need something to cover their operational costs. Nothing else. Training could be harmful because with the BBC stamp on your head, you go to other media and leave the rural area and you go to Dar es Salaam or whatever. So I only think this question could be.
Yeah, so the chance to say no, it's interesting that it came up or that you realized while having a beer. So I would translate this to having a good personal informal relationship also, right? So my next question, so this was one of the challenges, or I think it's a really interesting experience to learn from and to discuss about. But what other challenges did you experience in the field or in this cooperation?
Another challenge was the workload of those people who did the research. Coming from a German, Swiss, European context, you think PhD students have all the time of the world. They are just assisting you a little bit in teaching, and then the rest of the day they are free, and then there is still the night. And so these people in Africa, they have a full-time job in the government. So when do they research? So they really sometimes don't have the chance to go out to the field or spend 3 weeks in the field, what we thought would be ideal to do in that case. So the workload is quite interesting and a hindrance to that. And also we were astonished, some institutions had so many research projects, not only ours, but also others. And yeah, then the time becomes scarce.
So other research project means also getting money from somewhere else, maybe. Yes. So what do you think is, what is your conclusion for media development out of this experience?
I would say, I don't know how you do it, but it would be good if implementers from here check what other projects the institutions have. There are also donor darlings in some countries, and they're overthrown with money. And sometimes some implementers or some donors give far too much money. So, and the people work where the money is. So it would be good to check that and to see how realistic is this. Do we overstretch the capacity of those organizations, normally small ones? Then you can, if you overload them, they will go to their knees and they don't work.
Yeah. So did you make any other observations or conclusions that we didn't talk about yet?
What we overestimated was the cooperation between the partners in the African countries. And then I became aware sometimes, I mean, this is like a personal observation. I thought about this, why don't they cooperate? It's so easy or it's necessary. And then I thought to myself, well, I don't like the other department. I don't name it now in my own university. I also don't cooperate with them. So it's quite human not to cooperate with someone you don't like.
That's a good point. Yeah,
the love point.
It's all about love. I think there's a famous song on that. So my last question is, how do you think is this experience related to trust?
Very difficult question.
So maybe
trust
I can
is not everything. I think I thought it was not about trust. It was more about commitment. So I love the commitment in our word bubble there. So if the commitment is there, then trust is developed over successful cooperation over time. But if you don't have a commitment, you don't enter into this stage where you have a chance to develop trust.
Thank you. So I think, yeah, commitment leads to trust, and that's also something important we know. So now I'm talking to Said. Said, it's so nice to have you here. So my question to you is the first question, that you can introduce yourself. What do you love about your job at Tribal News Network?
Thank you. So my name is Said Nazir Afridi. I'm from Pakistan. I'm running Tribal News Network, a news hub for the region involving radio station, digital media, and also like we are training journalists on emerging trends of journalism. Like you see the transition nowadays. So yeah, we are preparing ourselves to promote good journalism. And I think the work that we do, the credit goes to International Media Support Organization, and in a region which was conflict-ridden for so many years, the Pak-Afghan border region in Northwest Pakistan. So the support from International Media Development Organization and donors, it was so crucial, and still it's so important. And I would say that if this cooperation, if there is mistrust, if there is lack of trust, so it can fail many projects and initiatives. About your question, I love journalism because it empowers people, especially in my region, who have no access to education, who are suppressed by local laws which are very authoritarian. So to empowering people, I think it gives me smile and it gives me satisfaction if I make some change in my community. So it keeps me moving. So this is the biggest thing that give me motivation.
And what are your personal experiences? Can you give us some insights with the cooperation, I mean, with international partners, but also, I mean, to work with tribals or with communities in your country?
Yeah, so I think from my personal experience and my observation, I would say that usually the International Media Support Organization are considered to be donor by the local partners. And decision-making process, usually from conceiving the project or designing the project to the implementation, I think they are not that much involved that they should be. And this is something that sometimes demoralize the local partner, maybe the productivity of the project is affected. So I think it should be, they should be taken on board on all stages. And I would say one thing, listen to your local partner, because they are on the ground and they are the main people who are bringing change at the local level. So their priority and their understanding should be given importance. And the second thing that I would say, this is a list, so I would, yeah, for you to talk about experience is something, so it could be small and so yeah. So the local needs, when the International Media Development Organization, they come to the region, so usually they come with their own mind and maybe with their own ideas. So I would say that local needs should be assessed before starting any work. And I would say that if a short research may be done in the beginning, if it is a training of journalists or maybe like starting production for the region. So some of our partners, they have done this. And I think it's very good thing, and we must appreciate it. You see that there are some other actors in international media development who are not specialized in the field, but they get money from the donors, and then they end up in hands which are also not experienced at local level. So it's kind of vestige of resources. It's kind of disservice to local people. So I think it should be stopped. I don't name organizations because it's not a good idea to have name of organization, but I have in mind a few organizations, international and local, who are just wasting their time. If you're not expert, if I'm a journalist, why I should do a sanitation work? So I should do my journalistic work, so it might be perfect. But if I do something else, if I'm not specialized, there is no point. I think the local context understanding is quite important for international media development organization. Like sometimes the local partners are forced to take photos of women in some areas where it's kind of prohibited, and it like creates maybe troubles for the local partner organization. And similarly, like talking very directly, because there's also cultural difference. So we are coming from different cultural background. If you are bringing your maybe values from Europe or maybe from America, and you are like promoting it in a direct way, maybe in Afghanistan or the border region, in Pashtun conservative society, or very religiously very charged society there. So I think it's counterproductive. So the local context should be understood, and the staff who are involved in dealing with the local partner, they should have the knowledge of those regions. So this is one important thing that should be kept in mind. Some organization that we work or we have seen, they have tried to like influence editorial agenda. I think it is killing the independent journalism itself. So instead of promoting it, so you are like damaging it. So it should be avoided. And I have some example of, I was working with the international NGO who was supporting a media project there, and they were like giving us cover this and don't cover this, do this. So I think it's like controlling editorial agenda is not a good idea. Branding question is really like it's close to the heart, branding something to the international media development. And they are always, they want to see their logo to be public, to be like visible and seen by people. But if you are working in a region where Taliban are so active, if people are very conservative, so getting funding in those regions, I think it's also problematic, because they see you as an agent of Western countries or maybe America. I will give you one example. It is not just about the common people, but for the last 8 years, since we established tribal news network in the region, the local press club, which is very strong in Peshawar, having more than like 400 journalist members, they discourage our reporter that you are project-based media organization, we cannot give you membership. And last month, because of our visibility, because of our work, because of our consistency and some sustainability. So now they have like given membership to 4 of our reporters. And there was a campaign for their election, presidential election of the press club. So they visited for the first time TNN office and they saw and they begged for vote. So I think it was a big development. So my point was, even in the journalist community, the international funding is also sometimes, they see it as a suspicious thing. So I would say another point that I want to share with you, that the assessment, you do assessment of local partners, but how about if the local partners assess you? So I think it's the lacking. I saw once in a DW, we are partnered with them. There was a local initiative, I think it was very encouraging, and still it continues. So it was to invited us to assess their team and their management and their cooperation with them. So it was a great opportunity, initiative. It should be supported, maybe adopted by others. And there are also other organizations who do this through maybe a Google link, like sending some question and like you answer them how you feel about the partnership. So also to some extent is good. And some international organizations, they are more focused on activities and less on M&E and impact measurement. So impact is key to any project. I think they should pay more attention to it. And there are also some overlapping and like sponsoring or supporting activities. So also wastage of time and wastage of resources. So it should be avoided. And I have a few points I want to just quickly like, yeah, sustainability of project is a concern for international media development, but the sustainability of the local partner organization, I think they are not much interested in it. So the sustainability of local media must be like the highest priority of international media development, because if they are not sustainable, so there would be no work in future. So lack of knowledge sharing is also one problem. Like they don't have mechanism or platforms to share like knowledge with the local staff partner staff to enhance their capacity. And training, like and some partners, they are most interested when it comes to training. They are most interested in quantity and less in quality. And sometimes I have like yeah, tough interaction with them because I have my own mind and I want to like follow my mission that I have in mind. So like there should be quality journalism, we don't want quantity. And there should be a follow-up and mentoring integrated and training support program. So usually it doesn't happen. It's one-time activity is finished. And then there is no follow-up and there is no impact measurement. So what's the point? So how you can impact your community and how it could be beneficial to the local people. And there was one example that we are partnered with an organization and they shared an advertisement for maybe bedding. We applied for it. We were in top 10. We were even made it to top 3. But at the end, they told us that you are not eligible. So go with us. So we are like a strong voice there with Thomson Media. When our interests matched, we worked with them. Like the region where I'm from, there are like 1,000 journalists there, so hardly 10 of them are female. So we worked on promoting women journalists in the region, and it's going so successful. And I can claim that with this support now we have like the TNN is the leading organization in Pakistan, which are working with 40% journalists, 40% female journalists working with TNN. So it's a big ratio, and even in Pakistan. And the second thing, FPU, they have supported us, they have listened to us, they kept our news service being a very important for our existence and our sustainability. And now we are in a position to achieve more sustainability and become sustainable if international media development don't support us. So, and the DW, we were like promoting citizen journalism, and it was a great help for us and TNN, because it gives us a free human resource. It gives us like unique voices, and it gives us like unique content. So our social media is promoting, like getting popular, and we are having so much visibility in the region. So this also contributes to financial sustainability in a way. So yeah, so these were few points that I wanted to share. And sorry, I just didn't mention one foundation here in Delhi, because there was a great need for doing programming on COVID-19, but there was no support for it. So we were happy that we matched our interests with them, and we like started fellowship for local journalists to improve their capacity in health reporting and pandemic reporting. And these programmings are reaching out to Waziristan, to a cut-off regions, like where there is no electricity, where there is no internet. So we are using a radio station for it, and we are reaching a quite huge population, and still it's going on. So we don't work with those organizations with whom our mission doesn't match. So it is about mission. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Saeed. I sort of had to cut in here if you hadn't finished. And as Birgitta said before, time is really our enemy here, because we would have loved to hear a lot more from you, but we will pick up some of your points later in the discussion. But for now, I'll pass on back to Ines, because she has some more academic models and strategies and some more views from international local media partners.
Very much, Christina. So after we heard like from direct experience, what I'm going to do now is to present you some preliminary results from a study I conducted and actually really still am conducting. And first of all, I would like to thank all those FOME members who distributed the survey among their local partners and helped to generate the databases on which we can discuss today, among other databases. So I will tell you a little bit about the importance of trust in media development partnerships and what trust is actually important for, and share these first insights with you. Oh, does it? I do it or no? Yeah. Okay, so the study as such is a little bit broader than what you can see here, but for the purpose of today's event, I focus on two research questions. The first one is, how important is trust to local partners in media development partnerships? And the second one is, what difference does trust make when it comes to dealing with problems or challenges, or how we just phrase these things? And how did I try to answer these questions? I collected data via interviews with local partners of FOME members. So far it's 7 interviews. I conducted them in August, July this year, but I'm still trying to actually get a few more. And then on the other hand, I conducted an online survey by your help. And until Sunday, actually 55 project managers or representatives of local organizations filled it in. So yeah, let's look at the results. But first of all, I would also like to, because, you know, Christoph said that people will leave the room when you talk about theory, but I thought I'll give it a try. Let's talk a little bit about trust concepts again, how we understand trust, because other than before, where we talked about trust in media, this is trust between different partners in media development. So I looked into organizational studies and what kind of concepts they came up with to conceptualize trust. So Sako and Helper actually act on the assumption that there are 2 or 3 components or different aspects of trust: competence trust, contractual trust, and goodwill trust. Competence trust refers to, you know, capabilities and competences to, you know, fulfill what is actually needed in this partnership. Contractual trust is, you know, that you just spell out the conditions in a contract or an agreement, and then you trust that the partners stick to them. And goodwill trust is this kind of going beyond the actual written or explicit agreement, but more, you know, helping one another out beyond what is actually the project, and knowing that the other one is on good terms with me and will treat me fairly, and I will treat them fairly. And the interview, I will first start with some insights from the interviews. In the interviews, I did not really ask about these concepts, but I will show you how they were reflected in the answers of the interviewees when I asked them what makes a positive partnership or a good partnerships for them, or what, you know, where did they face some challenges. So in terms of competence trust, it was actually something that was quite prevalent in the interviews. What I noticed is that partners really want to be granted competence trust. Like the local partners want to know that the partner organization trusts them to be an expert in their field and to have knowledge to really, you know, conduct what they want to do well. And they want to know that their contribution and their expertise in this respect is valued. So you can see here one quote where one of the interviews said, "It's very important that you think you are a member of this partner NGO, not just like an employee, like doesn't matter. If you feel like you're a member, I have to contribute, I bring value to the NGO, to this project." It can, you know, the downside, or like if that doesn't, that feeling is lost, it can make the partner feel like, you know, they're not really seen. And if that usually happens, or that's what I heard from the interviews, when the international partner tries to impose things on the local partner. So here in this quote, you can see that this interviewee said, "No, I don't need people to tell me how I do the work that I do. You know, when it becomes interference, when it becomes an indirect way of trying to impose things, I cannot allow it. And I mean, I'm the media expert here. You're not a media expert organization." So this was a very strong feeling where this person apparently faced in a situation in a partnership where he or she felt that the partner was imposing something. In terms of contractual trust, this was actually not something that really came up a lot in the interviews or was being referred to. However, there was a hint that it can cause irritation when these contractual agreements are being pushed without the other trust aspects being already built, so that's why I put here contractual trust first. I can tell from this interview that it's maybe not a good idea to really try to focus on this trust aspect first. So here we had a situation where the interviewee felt that by wanting them to sign that, working on a project proposal is confidential, and you cannot, if you commit to us, you cannot commit to somebody else, that the partner organization was imposing, like a second government, certain rules, and it's not like two NGOs trying to do a project together. When it comes to goodwill trust, that was selected in the interviews and situations when the international partners, did not assume that when they did not deliver something that it was because of a bad intention, but really listened to them why that was. So in this example here, the person said, we had a meeting yesterday and I told them that because of the situation in X country, I will have some issues, and when it comes to paying the staff and all of that, because of the economic crisis and the currency inflation, all of that. And they were like, okay, don't worry. Whenever you face a problem, please tell us and we'll try to find a solution. So, so that's so much about the insights from the interviews. I also studied these aspects in the survey, and the different trust components were captured by several items, and the respondents were asked to rate them according to how important they think these issues are. So when you look at this slide, you can see in dark green when respondents rated the aspect highly important, and the lighter it gets, the less important it gets, from 5 to 1. So overall, what becomes obvious here is that on average, we have a mean always over 4. So that was a little bit less than very important. So all in all of these things, all of these aspects are quite highly important, but competence trust, that they are really being granted this trust, that they are capable, they are the ones knowing what to do in this project, that was most important. And what I found a little bit surprising is that also contractual trust was actually rated quite highly important. And least important, but just a little bit less, is goodwill trust. And then I asked the respondents to what their impression is, how important these things are to their international partners. And maybe, as a positive outcome for all of us, I can say that there were quite some overlaps. So there was not a big discrepancy here. So the respondents of the survey, the local partners, actually thought that these 3 aspects of trust are also quite highly important to their partners. And when we compare them right next to each other, you can see that in terms of competence trust, that was also something where the partners, the local partners, expected that their international partners would rate it quite highly, even higher than they rated themselves. In terms of contractual trust, it was almost the same. And in terms of goodwill trust, we can see that the local partners assumed that it is a little bit maybe less important than they think themselves in terms of importance. So there's not a big discrepancy. It's not as if contractual trust is something they think is really important to international partners, but not important at all to themselves. And then the second question is, of course, the key one as well. So what difference does trust make then when it comes to dealing with problems? And it is quite interesting. There is also literature on that. There is a study by Elbers and Arts, and they really look into how they don't look into media development cooperation, but into development cooperation in general. And they look into how NGOs from the Global South deal with problematic conditions. So when their partners or donors ask them to do something which they cannot really fulfill. So Elbers and Arts conducted interviews and found that there are 3 or 4 strategies actually how the locals deal with that. One is preventing exposure. That means that they try to either not prolong the collaboration, or when things are really bad, that to stop it, to end it, to get out of it. The other strategy is trying to change the conditions. That would be like engaging with the partner, talking about the reasons why something cannot be fulfilled, why it is problematic for them. The third one is mitigating impact of conditions. When they feel like, okay, these conditions are set, they are problematic for us, we just maybe try to work with somebody else or avoid contact with our partner. And the last one is that the local partners rather pretended they comply to these conditions while actually doing their own thing and not trying to cause any trouble and to sneak out of this situation. So what is interesting here, the authors say that for the strategy trying to change conditions, trust is required. So how did our respondents from the survey feel about the likeliness that they would use these strategies? So what you can see here in green and in red are the means, like the average of the respondents of the survey. So 5 is that they would use the strategy, that it is very likely to use the strategy. 1 is that it's very unlikely. And you can see here when they had a general positive experience with the international partners, changing was, of course, the most likely strategy. And then the other strategies are quite less important. I mean, on the second, mitigating rate second, then avoiding and then portraying. And that doesn't also really change when they had a negative experience with a partner. So even then, it is not that they wouldn't engage with the partner anymore. They still mostly use this strategy of trying to change the conditions, but the other strategies become a little bit less or more likely. And what is interesting here for the method cracks, maybe the standard distribution is also quite high in terms of the rates for the negative partnership, which just means that there were really answers, like there were diverse answers. So there was quite a few of respondents who said, yes, portraying is actually quite likely, or yes, mitigating is quite likely. So there was a certain share of people who do think these strategies is something they would do. So I know I need to wrap up a little bit. I wanted to, it's actually a good news that changing is really something that partners try to do, because I would assume that's also what the international partners would like them to do in the relationship. But let me just point out that also the interviews reflected that avoiding and portraying is a feasible option to partners. So avoiding can mean that they try to silently and politely end the partnership. It can mean that they really feel burned out in a partnership. They don't feel seen in the partnership. They just feel like implementers with a job to do, and then this person said, you leave the position, you leave the project because you feel empty. And also, and partners were quite open about this, portraying is an option. So there might be a project that fails to have impact, and then this person says, well, when you have to fill in the monitoring and evaluation sheets, you get into problems, and then you fake it. Or you are just don't feel in the position to really talk about these challenges or problems you have with the donor or the international organization, because you don't want them to know what you're going through, and you don't want to complain all the time. And this kind of open communication is then probably not possible. So all in all, the conclusion in terms of trust is, well, all three aspects are quite highly important, and there are no major discrepancies between what local actors rate and what they think their international partners' priorities are. And in terms of what difference does it make? Well, I would say a feeling of human connection and understanding at a human level would make open communication about challenges or trying to change the situation more likely, while when bureaucratic requirements of, when it is felt that they have the highest priority in the project, then strategies like window dressing or exiting really also are feasible options to local partners. So thank you very much.
You can take my seat and I'll take the mic over there to sort of act as a bridge between the panel and the audience. Please think about your questions. That is also for the online audience. And I'll start with the first one to give you a little bit more time. All right, and I would like to pick up, oh yeah, good, that hands are already shooting up in the air, but I would like to come back to this one point that Christoph, that came out of your project with, do you get the chance to say no? And also Said, what you mentioned in terms of interference in the editorial agenda. Do you feel as a local media partner that you can voice and express difficulties with partners, either to the international media assistance organization that you're working with or the donor? And maybe thinking sort of one step further, do you feel that, or would you welcome a sort of complaints mechanism? Because we heard this morning from Sitat, there's a public editor role in India, for example. And would this be something on a local level that you would welcome, where you can sort of address complaints?
Yeah, I think it's a very important that we should do like independent journalism, and we shouldn't be like advertising agency. So I off time and again I resisted, and sometimes if the donors or maybe international media development organization like not happy with what I'm saying, so we have like other options, and we can like move on from the partnership, from the potential partnership, so we can drop it. So I think it's integral to our mission and our strategy that we should promote independent journalism in the region. So yeah, accepting intervention from outside or influencing your editorial agenda, I think it's like you are harming the trust of your audience, because they are loyal to you, because they trust you, of your credibility and dependence. So we cannot, we don't want to lose it. We can lose a partner, but we cannot lose our audience. So.
All right, thank you. I think I want to open it up now to the room, and yes, Jumana, maybe Anja first, and then.
Yeah, I was struck actually. Can I have? There's this one finding that was in this competence trust. And I mean, did you notice that amongst the terms that we gathered in this room, skill was not among them, and competence? So I found it really striking. It might be a huge misunderstanding between us and partners if this is like a key for them, or from your findings that they want to be perceived as someone that has expertise and skill, and then in this group again, this term doesn't even come up as something to, it's all about trust and commitment, just as something to keep attention to. Maybe there's some solution or some key moment in this gap. This is a comment. And the other thing that came to my mind while listening to the whole discussion is that there might be also a huge misunderstanding in this, what is a partnership? Because I feel like there's often we have, or the way you describe the relationships are just simple service contractors that what is often you have a relationship of a service assignment. If you ask someone to conduct a research and you say you have a certain research design and you want the researcher or analyst to follow this design, it's a service assignment, I would say. And not how is, where is the line between service contract? I have this a lot, or we have this a lot with partners that just also expect orders, say, what shall we do now? What do you expect me to do? And then it becomes a service relationship. And I think this needs some attention as well. Where does a specific relationship is positioned on that range between being a service agreement and a partnership, and how, it also needs to be reflected in the contract and also in the money that goes back and forth. If I pay someone to do a certain thing that I want him to do, that's a simple service relationship. And then you wonder, what's the ownership aspect, and it's maybe blurry or unclarified.
Yeah, thank you, Anja. Maybe just to add to that, I think Ines on one of your slides was also feeling burned out and leaving the project. I think one of the participants from the surveys mentioned that, and I wonder if also with trust, responsibility widens to also cover issues like well-being and security for our partners. But I want to sort of throw that to the panel. Maybe Ines, do you want to sort of reply on that comment from Anja in general, and then all the others feel free to come in.
In terms of the last one, you know that maybe better than I, what kind of range of different formats of collaboration there are. And it is actually a very good question. I know that international NGOs like to talk about partnerships, but that was also, that they partner with the local organizations. And maybe the local organizations questions whether it is actually a partnership or just a collaboration or just a service contract, But when you talk about partnerships, they also expect that this means talking at eye level and, developing projects together. Whereas when one says, I imagine when you say, I just need a certain thing to be done, I need a service contractor, or I want you as a service contractor, that's something else. But there's a lot of talk about partnerships in the media development field.
Said, Christoph, feel free to come in.
Yeah, it's an interesting question with the service contract. I'm not quite sure what is the opposite, or what you think is a better relationship. In our case, we were convinced that we developed the project together, that we developed the research design jointly. Everyone nodded, everyone said, yeah, that is important. Everyone said, yeah, the final goal of the research is to transfer technology to farmers so that they apply it. So I felt very safe. It was not like when I do a service contract with coders for content analysis. Then you say, okay, you get 500 articles and you get them coded in 6 weeks' time, and that you get this amount of money. That's a service contract, sure. But this kind was it looked like a good collaboration, and everyone was saying yes. So I was not. I thought it's
yeah, not necessarily. It just needs to be clear.
Then you have contract trust, and
you also have to trust.
I think there's also like a division on the idea of service contract and grant and all this stuff. So this is also like conceptual things. But I would say we are talking about here partnership, which doesn't involve like service contracts and things.
All right, there was another question. Yeah, just from the gentleman.
Good afternoon. My name is Simon Mangon, PhD student at Sciences Po in France. I will have two short questions. In fact, the first one is about exit strategy in media assistance. We know that the goal of development is to support local partners so that they can get autonomous. So it means the end of the relation. So don't you think that international organization exit strategy should be a key for trust in media development? And the second question is related to trust towards local political authorities. We didn't talk about them that much, but in various contexts, especially in authoritarian context, we've seen that international media assistance can backfire and don't have the expected effects. And one of the reasons is maybe because of the local political authorities use international media assistance in their own interests and sometimes to better control media. So I was wondering, what do you think about the limits of trust and collaboration between international media assistance organization and local political authorities? Thank you.
I think, yeah. Saeed, do you want to reply first, or shall we get another one? So Birgitta had also a question, so maybe we'll take that one as well. And yeah, Saeed.
Thank you. I'm not sure whether it's so much a question or a comment, but there were two things that kept coming back to me, especially when you were speaking, Saeed. One may be very banal, and you can probably answer that. But when you were telling about your experiences, I had the feeling like déjà vu, that I could almost say, oh, this was when you worked with this funder. Oh, this was when you worked with that. There's such a like a continuum of different kind of media development funders, and they have different modalities and different levels of operation. And one of the things that I have found was really useful was in the context where it has been possible to join the funders and to have like a media working group or something. That's what it's been called in different realities I've been a part of, where media funders meet once every 3 months or something and talk about what they should do. It's very provocative to those more restrictive ones who I know who were, you talked about in the beginning, but many of them are quite open, and you can use that also as a user, as a partner, when you are lucky to be a partner, to create some coherence and a discussion about the conditions under which they fund, because actually you are also a rights holder as a media entity getting assistance. So I think that has been quite productive. Also in a few situations I've suggested it myself, and it has actually had positive impact. But I also know realities where people were just not open enough, and it didn't bring anything exciting. That was one comment. The other one is, and it's not so clear to me, so I'll make it very brief. You mentioned different things, and one of the experiences I have with media organizations in different countries is that sometimes you are so dependent on donor funding. It doesn't seem to be the case for you. You're quite, you know what you want. But very often organizations forget to be mission driven, and you forget to have your strategic plan and to say to donors, well, you may want to work with us, but this is our plan. Do you want to support with this or with that? Or in that sense, you become less, I've seen from experience, that you become less vulnerable to being shoveled around. Well, we want you to service contract or to fill in a gap we have, where you become more of an entity in your own right.
Yeah, so first I will answer your and then go to the gentleman. I would say that this is very much needed, that there should be like a communication channels between the local partners and maybe the funders, international development, because they should have a good idea of the region and the context where they are going to maybe spend money or do projects. So I think it's very much needed, and I will be so happy like to give my input to such platforms or organizations. And there are other stakeholders who are also be interested to do that. And your second question is about like sustainability. In the beginning, there was like conflict, Talibanization, and the region where I work, the people have no access to local information, which could affect their lives. So we started with donor like funding, and from the day first, it was my thinking that we should like reduce donor dependency, but it was unavoidable in the beginning. So slowly and gradually, like we have now 30%, more than 30%, like 35, 40%, we are not donor dependent. In the beginning, we were like 95%, donor dependent. Slowly and gradually, like we are reducing this dependency. And it is also like you cannot be dependent forever in our countries where donor funding is also shrinking. So because of the authoritarian regimes that he mentioned, it is quite like risky. So you should have like your local income sources. So we are diversifying our local income sources, and now like we are building on it. So the partners that we are working, I think the good thing, if you are like talking from if you are convincing, so I think the international media development, they listen to you. And this is, I think, in my case, I have proved it. And most of the time, I think that I propose and I do in my region, this is accepted. And this is why we are mutually like sustaining our operation and having impact in the region. So this is the strategy. And government, and if you are not even dependent on international donors, so government like create problems for you. So trust deficit is always with the government, because media is all about like government accountability, rule of law, democratic processes, human rights. So they are always enemy of like media, because they are not open to criticism. So it is difficult to get them on board, because they need like excuses to shut down your service or damage you. So this is why you should follow local rules, regulations. Otherwise, I think any like relationship with the government in those countries will not be sustainable.
All right, and I think the first question was on exit strategies. So maybe who wants to come in on that one?
Which one?
Exit strategies from international media organizations. Exit, so whenever they leave the country again, basically. Also, the project is over, right? So project phase over, what next?
The exit strategy.
I'll repeat again, because I think the online audience, but thank you, Sophia. So that an exit strategy is also thought right in the development and then all through implementation stage of the project.
To leave the country. Yeah, I think if you have like good planning in beginning, and I think this is all about collaboration and partnership. You shouldn't do that in isolation. You should have more partners. In case international media development exit in a country, so there might be other partners who could carry the work and continue it. So yeah, there might be there could be many reasons for exit, because sometimes it's forceful, so you are not acceptable locally. Sometimes maybe like donor priorities, they don't like pay attention to those regions which they did. But I think it's in beginning, if you're planning, you should be clear what you're going to do in a certain regions. So if just you jump in one region and then jump in another region, I think it's damaging. So it's not like promoting what you're doing.
Right, any more questions from the room? Yeah, Sophie.
I'm not so sure whether it is a question, but it is implied as a question. I would like to come back to what Birgitte said. She was mentioning, where's your strategic plan? And I thought, yeah, I think there is an imbalance. What we call partnership is not two partners on the same level, right? This is your feeling, I'm sure, Said, as for almost all the partners. Why? Because in the end, the money comes from somewhere else, and they decide whether you get it or not. Now, but I think from my experience, what I saw is that the local partners did not use their strengths and they did not develop it, because you are much stronger than you think. You know, I had partners we wanted to support because we thought they are doing very good work, and they couldn't tell us what they want to do. They were waiting for us to tell them what our favorite project would be, you know. And there were situations when I said, okay, if you don't know what you need, how can I? We don't have a project then. It's so easy, you know. And because we had established a good personal relationship, okay, they immediately understood what I mean. And they said, okay, we come back in 5 days to you. And after 5 days, I had wonderful proposals of projects we could discuss together and see would we get funding for that. Another strategy, of course, is networks, not single medium, but stronger entities that are telling the international media assistance community what the needs are, you know, and there's much more. And I'm wondering whether from your experience, you really make the best use of all opportunities to get stronger in this imbalanced, incomplete partnership.
Yeah, I think it's a problem with local partners because it's also capacity building and like the level of communication, they cannot convey the message what they wanted to do. And maybe not understanding sometimes the donor agenda is different, but you have to align your objectives and goals with, but they don't know how to do it. I think it's a trick. So I think the capacity building of local organization is very important, especially on media business and entrepreneurship. So, usually we do it entrepreneurship, but we don't tell them how to write maybe a proposal, how to build it, what is a mini framework, other things. So it make it easy their work, but we don't spend energies on it. So their capacity building and management, maybe proposal writing, business development, and all these could be small workshops for them. So I think it can help a lot.
Maybe I can also add something to that. From the experience I had from the interviews, I talked to a range of different kinds of local NGOs, and some of them are very professional. They have administration staff, proposal writing staff, finance staff, and this happened because the international community or development community expected this kind of professionalization. Then I would but also ask to really make a difference in local communities, for example, in those local radio projects we just had a look at. Are they driven by, yes, I'm really good at filling in Excel sheets, or are they driven by something else? They're really good at talking, sensing what is happening in their communities, knowing that what is the problem with COVID-19 communication. So I think you also have to decide what kind of partner do you want to work with and what is their expertise supposed to be? Or, I mean, maybe you have a thought on how to solve this.
Yeah, Jomana, can you maybe bring back the mic? And then Anja.
Just to make that clear, from the partners I work with, I do fill out a lot of Excel sheets. But if they cannot tell me what the things cost on the ground, I cannot fill it out, okay? So, you know, I think it's not an either or. And they don't even expect them to fill out a log frame, which is, you know, an own task to do. I do that for them, but I want them to be the expert for the project they want to execute. And for the competence, they need to do that. And also I expect them to be participatory with their own member radios. In that case, it's mainly networks of radios we work with. So that does not matter, but still, I mean, there is an attitude of, I rather wait until they tell me what are the priorities now of German media assistance, you know, and then in my institution, there's also a Catholic in the name. Oh, there might be other concerns and we cannot touch this or that topic because they are Catholics and things like that. So they wait, which is in a way understandable, but I just don't need that. You know what I mean? I don't want to get this getting around, because if we start that, we lose the trust. You can only trust with transparency, and that means we have to open up, and this is for both sides.
Thank you. While the mic is traveling back, allow me a quick follow-up question to Christoph. And why do you think in your project partners went from influencing to portraying, even though, as you said, the conditions were perfect?
Say it again.
So they, if I understood, they went from influencing, so they could have mentioned and actively made their voices heard and address issues, but they rather chose the path to portraying and deliver fake results or...
I really don't know. An exercise to investigate that was not funded by the main funder. We had some excellent proposal to really look critically at our own project, whether it's a service contract or whether we did something wrong. Could be, rarely the case, but could be. So I want to give back the question in terms of, you mentioned this option or the idea of having an ombudsman for local partners to complain about international partners. That sounds somehow convincing. Also, it's also difficult, but maybe then you are burned. Huh? If I say, I always have difficulties with Fondation Eurondel, or they treat me very, yeah, then our relationship will sour. Huh? So, but maybe the question is, maybe on a lower level, an honest question is, do we offer enough opportunities for our local partners to really come up? I have the feeling from that project I just portrayed that why does the partner only in 5th year after the second beer tells me what he thinks? Why not in the very beginning? I really don't know, but maybe it was so fixed that he felt, well, there is no room. I'm not aware of it. I did it on purpose to close the discussion, but I would pose that question to my own. Is there an honest option for partners to say no, or hey, you're imposing something on us? We really don't care about good governance. We need water. We have to live with this local authority at the moment, and your nice objectives, yeah, we know them all, and we can repeat the donor development Chinese language, but it's not important for us. I'm not sure. It's still a question. I don't know.
Thank you, Christoph. Anja has the mic, but Said, if you want to quickly come in on this, otherwise, yeah, Anja. Anja, again.
I think I have one thing in mind, because we talk about this treating each other as partners on eye level. And sometimes I get the feeling you can change the question that's relevant in between us, away from what is needed, or what do you need, or what projects would you like to do rather. And my experience is that if you shift it to a little bit to another level and asking, what do you think is the main issues currently in the field, in your context, like a context analysis? I had the best experience with this question. What's your context analysis generally? Generally, just not even what's the main problem, but how do you see your environment? Just share your main insights about like major issues being relevant at this point. The relationship changes the moment you raise this question. It really does. And I think, secondly, I want to comment, if you say, raise the question, can you decline money? I can ask myself as a media assistance organization the same question. Can I reject money that is offered to me by a donor? And yes, I can. I mean, occasionally I can, but not in general. I have to. It's an organism that needs to be fed, and this is true for all the partners in the field. It's an organism, like, and it wants to eat. Yeah, and yeah.
Maybe
go ahead.
what you just, your first point, Anja, that is something that was also nicely reflected, I think, in one of the interviews. I remember a quote where the partner put, it also depends, like there are international organizations who are like this and others are like that. And this person said that some of them knock at your door, ask if they can come in, and then they have a tea with you and ask, you know, what are the issues here? What do you think needs to be tackled? And others storm in like a dinosaur. They don't knock, they just break the door and say, this is what you have to do. This is how this person described this. So, you know, we don't know who is who in this description, but it is out there sometimes that people also rush in and others come in, have a tea and talk about, you know, what is it that is needed here.
All right, I was made aware we have 2 minutes left now, so very quick question, last quick question from the audience, Birgitta, yeah?
Have someone else. I've spoken so much today, but I just want to say that I would say, of course, you should say no. If you are a press freedom organization and you want support to governance and they come and suggest water, like you were saying, Christoph, I think that depending, of course, if you're dying of hunger, you may go for the water project. But if you have a social objective or a political objective and you want to develop media and press freedom or something, I think that the more you have, Sophia and I have been talking about, you don't need to have 3 people in the admin office or something. You can have a clear idea of what you want, and you can distinguish when this is my guiding star, will this project lead me that way? And if it isn't, you should much rather spend time, unless you're dying of hunger, you should much rather spend time finding funders and identifying funders who have, because there are so many funders out there who have different kinds of objectives, and if you know who they are and what they want to support, I would any day say, spend your time looking for those who want to do the same as you. But yeah.
Thank you so much, Birgitta. And maybe with this, let me just tell you, I think it became very clear that we have to be very open, transparent, and also listen, probably from the international media assistance side, what the relationship is all about. I think this became very clear. And I would add maybe the comment, if it's a technical service contract, then also accept that there are market prices. It is a service agreement then, and it needs to be dealt with as a business contract and not as a sort of goodwill partnership. But I will leave you with a reading recommendation in the chat. So over to Johanna.
Thank you. Yes, we did not have any questions on the chat, but we do have a reading recommendation from Nadine Jurat from Deutsche Welle Academy, and she's picking up on Christoph Spurg's experience and suggesting that in cases of things that can harm these relationships between media development actors and their local partners, you should check out a publication by Deutsche Welle Academy titled "How Development Actors Can Help and Not Hurt."
Exactly, not paid advertising. Anyway, thank you so much for your attention. And then I believe we have a quick coffee break now, and then we're up to the last session of the day.